Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 20 years experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You could also subscribe to our newsletters. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first, and subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can get a notification whenever we go live. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Getting by. By.
Wow.
Taking her one step at a time this week. Not bad. Not the worst. Not the best. We're good.
Okay.
Sorry, more than you needed.
Yeah, that
you know
was
what?
a lot.
I'm fine. Everything's fine, Jeff. Anna, how you doing this week?
Doing great.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Careful what you say.
I guess.
It's just, let's talk about it.
Wow.
No,
I pitched already. We're like 2 minutes in.
I know. Sometimes you just get right after it. I did forget to mention that we're the editors of manufacturing.net and industrial equipment news. So check those brands out. They're the best. Oh, and industrial distribution. I mean, really, there's a bunch. Before we jump into our first story this week, we have a new word from our old sponsor, LoadSmart. This episode is brought to you by LoadSmart. When dock scheduling gets jumbled, the costs add up quickly. Overbooked appointments lead to trucks on standby, which means detention fees, overtime hours, and lost customers. When carriers can easily schedule and edit appointment times, the dock operates without friction. LoadSmart recently helped logistics company 3PL save $144,000 in detention fees and 12,000 labor hours just in the first year after redefining dock scheduling across 4 warehouse locations. Download the case study now. There is a link in the body copy as well as the live chat. Our first story this week. Honda looks to drastically ramp up U.S. manufacturing. Just last month, Honda said it was scrapping plans to make the Civic Hybrid in Mexico. Instead, it's moving production to Indiana. This week, according to Nikkei via Reuters, Honda was reportedly looking to increase U.S. production by 30% over the next 2 to 3 years. The move would be a direct response to President Donald Trump's auto tariffs, which would add a 25% tax to all imported vehicles. It sounded like Honda wanted 90% of all cars sold in the United States to be made in the United States. But Honda denies the claims. In a statement to IEN and manufacturing.net, an American Honda Motor spokesperson said, quote, Honda has made no such announcement and will continue to consider the optimal global production system and allocation, taking into account customer needs and market conditions based on our long-standing approach of, quote, building products closer to the customer. America is a big market for the automaker, accounting for 40% of global sales. Honda reported more than 1.4 million in combined Honda and Acura U.S. sales in 2024, and it imported about 40% of those cars from Canada or Mexico. Jeff, a 25% bump on about 560,000 cars seems like a good incentive to start looking to expand U.S. operations.
Maybe. I mean, it's more complicated than that because if you look at bringing those jobs from Canada, they actually do want to do this. You're still going to be paying huge tariffs on steel and aluminum and a lot of other things as well. And a lot of componentry even. Mm-hmm. So it's not an apples to apples type comparison. If you look at Mexico, there's a 300% wage difference in what you pay auto workers in Mexico versus the U.S.
That's actually lower than I expected you to say.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of other cost elements that would need to be crunched and analyzed and looked at, where a company the size of Honda is not going to go, well, we got this one thing going, we're out of here in a matter of basically 2 months. It's just not the way it works. The other thing that's interesting here is this is the second time we've had one of these stories regarding Honda, where it came out that they were going to move to Indiana. The first one was out of Mexico, only to have the company go, nuh-uh, we didn't say that. So either there's somebody at Honda who wants to speak this into existence. They've got some sort of internal leak. I don't know what the dynamic is, but it's kind of strange that it would be the same company both times, only to have the claims dismissed. Now, this is part of this whole weird back and forth fluctuation that we're seeing with all of these tariffs, in particular for automotive companies. The people that this is also going to have an impact on are all those suppliers as well who are going to follow Honda or whomever moves these facilities and all this production to a U.S.-based plant. So there's just so many moving pieces here that some of these players just don't want to pay attention to or don't want to dissect, and just blurting out this information. I mean, if something the size of Honda, if they're going to move production of 500,000 cars, that's something that they wouldn't be able to forecast happening for 3 years. I mean, at the earliest. If they were going to do that, it wouldn't happen until maybe Trump is out of the White House.
Yeah.
So we don't even know the timelines and all this. It's just very confusing, and this just muddies the waters even more for these entire supply chains. So we just need to stop. We need more concrete information coming out on a number of levels here.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think that there's definitely an understanding that if companies get the headline out there, say like, okay, you know what? We could say that we want to bring like 90% of all manufacturing to the U.S. We could say that it's going to be billions of dollars in spending. And we just need to float it out there, because all they need to do is get it out into the news. So then people in the administration can tweet it, talk about it, throw it out there. So look at this. And then you just come back in and you're like, whoa. We didn't necessarily say that.
You're saying Honda is doing this, or there's political stakeholders that are trying to float this out there?
Like, I'm just hypothetically, for any company right now, it's a good time to just start throwing wild things out there. And then, I mean, I feel like every story right now is a Foxconn. Like every story is, we're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars of investments, and we're going to bring thousands of new jobs.
I would caution that works more against a company than for it. I think that's why Honda was pretty strong when they came out, in both to Reuters, to us when we got back to them, about just, they could not have been more plainly denying any of this.
Yeah.
So, I don't think companies want to float those types of rumors out there right now.
I don't know. Anna, one thing that was intriguing also was how Honda Canada and Honda Mexico also came out pretty stern in terms of, this is not happening.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of in between your perspective here and David's, because I also took away from this a little bit of, it seemed like they were towing the line a little bit. The statement that Chris Abruzzese gave IEN after this story ran, spoke to attending to the company's, quote, longstanding approach of building products close to the customer. So that's the priority for them. They didn't say exactly what they were doing there, but they did sort of hint at the fact that they want to be closer to the point of sale, which I don't know why you would include that specific point if your overarching theme here is, we're not moving any of this production back here. But then again, at the same time, Reuters the next day posted this story that included, as you said, like very strong statements from Honda Mexico. There said Honda has not made any production decisions that affect operations in Mexico, nor are there any currently being considered. Honda Canada said something along the same lines. No changes are being considered at this time. And so it was interesting to me then that spokesperson said to us, we did not make this announcement, but we are, wanting to make vehicles close to the customer. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? So to me also, I was like, are they trying to toe the line between making a firm pronouncement on this, or just maybe like letting it be assumed that they are considering it, so maybe not to be in the crosshairs of anyone's ire, which we've seen that happen. We know that crossing the president can result in
a lot of all caps.
Vehement response, and so I don't know. I mean, it is weird. It's super weird.
Why is it just Honda?
Well, I don't think it is just Honda. I feel like we've seen a lot of announcements, like NVIDIA coming out one day saying they're going to spend $500 billion making stuff in America. And then the next day they're like, but if the tariffs stand as they are, it's going to cost us $5.5 billion. I think that there are a lot of people right now. I mean, I was just going to joke about how like today you heard it first. The Today in Manufacturing podcast is investing $200 million in Wisconsin, and we're going to bring all these jobs, most likely. I just feel like there's a lot of that kind of bluster going on right now. Everyone talking about what they make in America, what they're bringing to America. And I just want to make sure that we're all tracking this to see if anyone comes through on it.
Well, and I read another report in Top Speed, another like auto blog, where they were talking about how why this has been such a point of discussion, because there were two other auto facilities, not Honda facilities, but two others in Canada that have temporarily shut down in response. In response to these tariffs. So people were concerned, I think, but they also said that Honda kind of really doesn't suggest that short-term type production shifts are not out of the question. They basically, like, that's kind of a matter of course for them, wouldn't be in response to this, but could take place. And so, and they say that's based on market demand. So I think the as clear as mud as they're being here, we don't know what's going to happen. And so maybe they're content to let everyone think they're getting their way. I don't know.
Well, and it could just be their way of navigating how nobody knows what's happening right now. I mean, I've been talking about setting up appointments at Automate, and I've had more than like 3 or 4 people already respond, just saying like, hey, we're trying to work through this tariff situation right now, trying to figure out what SKUs are impacted. Like, I've got too much on my plate to even talk about this trade show we're going to in a month. And I just think a lot of people, maybe they're responding to this like ever-changing landscape as well. I don't know.
Okay.
You don't buy it.
I think somebody the size of Honda knows exactly what they're doing. And maybe they are putting some feelers out there just to see what the temperature is and how people respond to it. But overall, I just think it's weird that the only major auto supplier, automaker we're hearing from that's happened to is Honda, and it's been twice. It seems odd to me that it's just them.
No, it's I mean, they're kind of playing Trump's game.
I think somebody's playing them, to be honest. It feels like somebody's trying to put them into a weird corner. I don't know why they would pick Honda, but I don't know. It just seems very oddly orchestrated by maybe somebody outside of Honda that is trying to get this narrative out there. And then they look odd by
like force their
backtracking.
hands.
But they're not going to, so I don't even understand that. It's just very confusing to me that this would continue to happen, because for Honda to put this out there, I think it causes more confusion in their supply chain and with their workforce than anything else. So I just don't see any benefit to them doing that. The stuff you're talking about with NVIDIA and some of these other AI and chip makers and things like that, they're trying to get a better deal for their infrastructure and their facilities that they need to build, because they're not there yet. So that makes sense to me. This one doesn't. I think maybe I'm missing something.
I think we can all agree that there's a lot of confusing things about this story. And we'll see what comes out of Honda or doesn't come out of Honda next week. All right, our next most popular story this week. Illinois pipe plant destroyed by fire. Rovenco Piping Systems in Joliet, Illinois, suffered a 3-alarm fire early Monday. 2 Rovenco employees arrived to work at about 4 a.m. and saw smoke. By the time firefighters arrived, flames had spread to the plant's roof. The fire reportedly caused at least 4 explosions at the facility. A firefighter was even injured in the incident, and what made things worse were the plant's open design and delays in getting water to Joliet, which doesn't have fire hydrants. The pipe manufacturing plant is considered a total loss, with damages estimated between $25 and $30 million. The company makes pre-insulated diesel exhaust and fluid piping systems and had recently invested $40 million in an expansion. Anna, were you surprised that the fire was discovered by employees reporting to work and not some sort of automated alert system?
I mean, that was a concern when I read that part. I mean, at first I was like, oh, thank God those employees got there early at 4 a.m. But also, if this company is growing and investing in their facilities, there's all kinds of technology out there that could have been an earlier alert for you than just your employees show up and see that there's a fire. So, that's a concern. And then also, you mentioned the plant's open design, and then the lack of water and hydrants also a concern.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that, you often see businesses that are off the beaten path and in very rural areas. That's understandable. Land is cheaper. You have more space to operate. But typically there's a contingency in place there.
It's we will bring business to the city, but there's basic infrastructure needs that need to be met.
Right. So that was a tough one. Fortunately, though, this company does seem to be in a good position from a downtime mitigation standpoint. So this facility is just one on a compound that's 20 acres. So I read a follow-up report where Chad Godot, who's the president of Vervain Co., he said that despite the fire, the company is able to keep operations moving as usual. The fire took place at only one of our 7 buildings, he said. We are continuing business as usual in our manufacturing projects as we speak. Maybe that's a glass half full way of saying what's happening there. I'm sure that it is. I'm sure that there's disruption, of course. And maybe he's just trying to keep the customer base calm. But it's a privately held company, so technically they don't need to make a statement at all. Most certainly, I think they would want to put to rest the idea that their customers would need to be elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or that there would be fulfillment or inventory issues or anything like that. So hopefully that's true or close to true, at least that they can continue to function in the meantime while they figure out what they're going to do about this completely wrecked facility that they have. But yeah, new technology installations I think would be best going forward. So you're not surprised by this at 4 a.m. And also putting a person at risk walking in that building,
Well, so that was what stood out to me, Jeff. So just simple Google search, Bosch, Honeywell, and ATI are just like the first 3 automated fire detection and suppression systems I found when I Googled automatic fire alarm factories. According to State Systems, an industrial fire protection company, monitored fire alarm systems are or should be connected to the fire department via a phone line, cellular dialer, or network connection. When these alarms go off, a signal is sent directly to the fire department. And I found it kind of surprising that, after a $40 million investment in an expansion, this system either wasn't one part of it or operational.
Definitely a tough lesson to learn. This is an interesting company. I mean, this was founded by a couple of brothers, 75 employees. So it's not very big, even though they have their products are everywhere from Antarctica to like Afghanistan. Seriously. I mean, it's really interesting what they do. But I would agree when you make this type of investment, it's in an unincorporated area. So it's not actually in Joliet. It's outside of it. So a lot of that infrastructure is not going to be in place. They may not have even had a fire department that they could connect to.
Yeah.
That, within their jurisdiction. I don't know what the range is and all that type of stuff. But you would think something like fire hydrants, especially when you're dealing with a lot of metal fabrication. There's chemicals in the facility. So, that was a part that really stuck out to me too. The fact that they had to literally truck in water in order to put the fire out. Who knows what could have been saved? I don't know. You would like to think, again, there is a little bit more monitoring, in fact, just for the employee safety perspective of it, even if it's not about alerting, local authorities. But more infrastructure in place. I think that's a tough lesson learned. And maybe some other small manufacturers working in other areas like this can chalk this one up to a best case or a best practice.
Completely agree. I know that 30 fire departments fought this fire, right? And it was actually the Joliet fire captain that was injured. I mean, you talk about what happens if this fire breaks out while employees are in it and what kind of safety would add if you had that sort of alert system. The injured firefighter was actually caught when the ceiling fell, because when they had to wait so long for the water to get there, then they were all of a sudden fighting this fire that was a little bit more out of control, went inside a door and didn't realize that the fire was above them. And that's when it kind of came down on them. Also, the one thing I found very problematic was that they said while there were chemicals stored inside the facility, officials believe most of it has burned off. And I just feel like we've heard that many, many times before. I mean, it burns off, but then it goes in the air. So we'll see. Hopefully it's not like a, Norfolk Southern type situation. All right. Well, our next most popular story. Trump administration moves to gut program that helps small manufacturers. President Donald Trump is reportedly planning to end funding for the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, or MEP program. If you're not familiar, MEPs are a public-private partnership that supports small and medium-sized manufacturers, which account for nearly 98% of U.S. manufacturers. U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin said the Trump administration would halt funding for 10 MEP centers in Maine, Kansas, Iowa, Hawaii, Delaware, Nevada, Mississippi, Wyoming, North Dakota, and New Mexico. The national network features 51 MEP centers, all of which now face an uncertain future. President Ronald Reagan actually started the program in 1988. Since then, it has contributed to $152 billion in new sales, $34 billion in cost savings, and the creation and retention of more than 1.7 million jobs. Baldwin and 14 other senators co-signed a letter to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick that said dismantling the program would, quote, undermine decades of federal investment in domestic manufacturing, including $175 million in fiscal year 2025 to fund the MEP centers. Summit Consulting and Upjohn Institute found that the MEP program generated a financial return ratio of more than 17-1 for the $175 million in funding it received from the federal government in 2023. Anna, at 17-1. MEPs seem like they're the deal of a lifetime.
Yeah. I was really bummed out when I saw this story. I was very early in my career when I learned about MEPs. This was one of the first organizations that I think I was able to see the work of these orgs in play, seeing smaller businesses in more rural areas and the influence that these have on making them successful. So yes, it was frustrating to see this. We talked about this last week about the sort of the gutting of NIOSH and how, to me, if our key objective, as stated, is to bring domestic manufacturing here, we can't continue to undercut the success of those organizations in terms of how they function and if they're safe and, how they can be competitive. That's not where we need to be cutting if that's our goal. You laid out some really good stats on some of the successes that these companies have gained through the MEPs. I read on the MEP Center online just last year alone, $15 billion in new and retained sales, $2.6 billion in cost savings, 2024. Just 1 year, So if you think that, the target is small and medium enterprises, which is literally the backbone of U.S. manufacturing, that is the vast majority of facilities in this country are these small and medium businesses. If we're kneecapping them with, services that are enabling their competitiveness, like we have a real problem on our hands.
Right.
We really do, and I fear that this Doge model is often encountering these agencies where it doesn't quite understand the role. Maybe they don't quite understand the practical applications and they see it more as this abstract project. And so they classify it then as government bloat.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the impacted companies are going to be those in smaller, rural areas.
Yeah. Shops with 20 or less employees.
Yeah. Companies that maybe don't have the resources to quite understand how to take the next step to scale or to implement new technology that they need to be competitive. They're just going to get run out of business, to be perfectly honest. And so, again, if this is an industry that we value, then there is most certainly a place for a public-private partnership that is meant to protect these businesses from vulnerabilities. And we have now so many vulnerabilities. We're in like absolute business chaos right now. And to think that now we're going to hang them out to dry further in that environment where people are just super confused and concerned and they don't know which end is up, that is really alarming to me.
Well, and it's because that Doge model sees $175 million as cost savings, not as investments, not as, the billions in dollars that they have created in new business. And I don't understand how some of these things are not seen as tools, and you need as many tools at your disposal to run your business as possible. And I mean, these we're talking about, Jeff, MEPs play a big role in helping SMEs with cybersecurity efforts, e-commerce, simple things like marketing. I mean, with cybersecurity alone, that should be worth the investment, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to lay the case out more plainly. I mean, you guys have done it.
Yeah.
The one thing that we can always count on with the Trump administration is their ability to be consistently inconsistent. And they did reinstate funding for these 10 MEP programs, thankfully. So until September.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
For a second.
For now.
For the rest of this fiscal year, they will get funding. The ones that really stood out to me is, Iowa was one of them. We've had how many stories talking about manufacturers cutting jobs in Iowa? Okay, and now something tells me they could use some support from from their extension program. The other one was North Dakota. They had something like 93 different manufacturers where ongoing projects had to be paused until this funding came through. So again, flying in the face of everything the administration has said they want to do. I had to pull this quote out from Wired as well. Because Wired reached out and wanted to know what was going on here. They said they're talking about the Department of Commerce, which NIST falls under, is responsible for the MEPs. The department is reprioritizing its programmatic activities to ensure that the U.S. secures its position as a leader in critical and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and quantum. Quantum. Not quantum computing.
Yeah.
Not quantum encryption.
Quantum.
That's not a thing.
Quantum.
Just quantum.
It's quantum.
It's just quantum.
It just rolls it
Which
all up.
sort of goes back to those things you were just referencing there in terms of really understanding what's going on here and what these folks do. As such, NIST has determined that these cooperative agreements are no longer aligned with the priorities of the department and NIST. What? How can you say that out loud?
Yeah.
It's one of the more ridiculous things. And again, it shows that disassociation with what is actually going on here.
Yeah.
Bigger picture, I guess, shorter term, all of those other MEPs have also got to be on edge.
Oh,
There's
okay.
more than
Yeah.
just 10.
Yeah.
Why they picked these 10, I have no understanding of.
Yeah.
You could look at every single one of these states and look at different things that are going on there. We've got a huge battery plant going on in Kansas. We talked about Iowa. We talked about North Dakota. New Mexico is another area where we've seen a lot of chip companies showing interest. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So short term, it caused a lot of anxiety with those programs. And then longer term, what happens after September? What happens in the next fiscal year? Are we going to go right back to this same ridiculous battle, where you said, was it 17-1?
Yeah. 17-1 return on investment.
What other government funded program can offer that type of return? So it's
None.
ridiculous. Thankfully, it was corrected in the short term. Hopefully longer term, people see the error of their ways on this one. Now, what I will say is, like a lot of things going on right now, I can appreciate the longer term strategy or focus, but there has to be a plan. I think wanting to shift a lot of the funding for these MEP programs to more of a private sector makes sense, gives it more stability. It does give it the opportunity to have more influence in terms of what the MEPs are doing to help that manufacturing focus in that geography. Okay, who's going to know that better than maybe larger manufacturers, financial institutions that want to invest in other types of manufacturing businesses. But you have to have a plan. You can't just pull the rug out and say, figure it out. I think longer term, yes, it would be better if it wasn't government funded and it was private sector funded. That's not right now.
Yeah.
We need a way to get there first. And if the government wants to offer ideas, incentives, programs, strategies, whatever to help get to that point, that makes sense to me. Can't just pull the rug out.
Well, it is a public-private partnership.
Right.
So it's not all public funds. And I just want to say, like, when we were working on this story, we have contacts with almost every MEP across the U.S., right? And we reached out to so many of them, and nobody wanted to say anything because everyone is afraid. Everyone is afraid to say anything in fear of retribution. And right now, to anyone, despite those fears, you need to speak up and say this is wrong. Because if enough people didn't speak up and say this was wrong, if Baldwin and the other senators don't speak up and say this is wrong, and the manufacturers don't speak up and say this is wrong, they just keep going with it. Like the money's gone and it doesn't come back, if only to September. We had one sort of grim YouTube comment from Theonidas. Yeah. Theonidas says, it's almost like as if they're trying to destroy America. Little less grim on the next comment, producer Eric. Little less grim. One person who did say something is Kurt Anderson, and I wanted to share it because he has worked very closely with these MEPs, and he was the only one kind of willing to come out and say something, and we weren't able to use his full quote, so I know it's a little long, I apologize, but I wanted to say it. Kurt Anderson, he's the founder of B2B Tail. He says, quote, "The Manufacturing Extension Partnership Network is a powerhouse organization that is tenaciously dedicated to the success of American manufacturers. Having the privilege of interviewing and interacting with hundreds of MEP team members over the years, there is one common and consistent thread amongst every individual: a fierce passion and deep commitment to making U.S. manufacturing a global leader. The MEP network exclusively provides expertise and solutions for small to mid-sized U.S. manufacturers. Considering 75% of all manufacturers in the U.S. are 20 employees or less, these manufacturers, which typically have limited resources, receive tremendous value when partnering with their local MEP. The MEP network has the ability to deploy the necessary solutions, resources, and expertise to help strengthen and elevate small U.S. manufacturers." He goes on to say MEPs help small and medium manufacturers keep up and catch up. I mean, we're talking about, like I said, basic marketing, SEO, e-commerce. MEPs deliver. And I think Kurt said it very well. I just wanted to make sure we got that full quote in there. Full Kurt. We went full Kurt there. Apologies. All right. Our next most popular story. 132-year-old Pyrex plant closes for good after 4 shutdown delays. The Anchor Hocking glass plant in Charleroi, Pennsylvania, has been around for 132 years. At the factory, more than 300 workers make Pyrex glass, a product line previously owned by Instant Brands until it went belly up in 23 and sold to Centerlane Partners, owner of the glass company Anchor Hocking. Anchor Hocking took over the Charleroi plant, also known as the Carrel Brands plant, in February 2024. 8 months later, the company said it was closing up shop and moving operations to another location in Ohio, about 170 miles away from Charleroi. The town and local officials fought it, and a wild back and forth ensued. By February, the closure had been delayed 3 times, and, quote, at the 11th hour, it happened again. Workers had already cleaned out their lockers when they were told that the plant would actually stay open for a few more months because they still had to fill a large order. Now, we might actually be at the end of the road for the factory. Last week, CBS News reported that, quote, after a long and emotional roller coaster ride, the Carrel Brands plant owned by Anchor Hocking closed. Many believe that this was the glass plant's 9th and final life. Anna, where do you stand on this story? So Charleroi is a depressed area, and it seems like any work is good work, but I can't help but feel like these employees have been jerked around for more than 2 years.
Yeah, they absolutely got jerked around. And, you know, we cover plant closures regularly. Mm-hmm. It sucks, but it's part of the industry. Yeah. But this one I thought was worse for a few reasons. One is longevity of this plant. It's been around for 132 years. You know, there was some local reports where they're interviewing folks who worked at the plant, and they were 2nd, 3rd generation workers in their family who had been working for the Carrel brand over that time. So for them, you know, this hits, I think, a little bit harder. And secondly, I found the whole process of these stops and starts in this roller coaster ride to be just really indefensible. I don't understand how or why it had to be that way. Mm-hmm. I think that if you wanted to think of like a terrible way to tell somebody that they're losing their job, you could do it by telling them like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
like,
and tying their severance package to staying on.
Right,
every time.
Exactly. So they were really put in a difficult position. You know, maybe you could argue that the writing was on the wall when a glass company bought this plant. And of course, in those scenarios, often there are redundancies where facilities get closed, especially old facilities get closed. But all this like nonsense about there are jobs available now in Ohio, 170 miles away from this plant. That is not a legitimate offer to anyone. That is not helpful to anyone who lives in Pennsylvania to move to Ohio. And this is a town of about 4,000 people. And so it has a really poverty rate that's triple the national average. These jobs didn't pay super well to begin with, according to Indeed. Even if you were a shift manager, you were barely north of $20 per hour. I just don't think it's simple to consider that these workers are going to move for a job that doesn't even pay that well to begin with.
Yeah.
The only silver lining that I could see here is that maybe this gave the workers something of a lifeline to hold on to while they were looking for new work, because obviously the company was so destabilized for so long that maybe that gave them enough of a head start to try to find something else. But I mean, that's like me trying to find a silver lining when I don't think there really is one. I mean, it was just like a nasty situation. And I just think really, really disrespectful of these employees to continue to string them along. When people have cleaned out their lockers and then you're like, oh, sorry, we actually do need you to stay for 3 more months to fulfill this big order. I can't even imagine what morale was like in that facility.
Mm-hmm.
But for these workers to have to show up every day, and like you said, they can't claim anything at that point until their job is officially done.
Yeah.
Just come on.
So for every silver lining situation that there is where people get a few more months to keep looking, there's a Joseph Del Cruz. And a Joseph Del Cruz his story was covered in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, right? Once they told him it was shutting down late last year, he sold all his belongings, bought 3 plane tickets. He was going to move his family near relatives in Texas because the plant was shutting down.
Yeah.
Come April 25, the factory is still open. Del Cruz is still in town. He lost the money on the flights, $800 security deposit when he broke his lease to leave Charleroi. Now he's paying rent in a small room in a full house shared with his girlfriend and his daughter. This all because the Corel brand's glass plant has been postponed 3 times since 24. And like I said, if he quits before the doors close, he loses severance pay and his healthcare benefits. Jeff, this Del Cruz says, quote, he told this all to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. They didn't give us a choice, to be honest. It's either we lost our benefits or stay here. So a lot of people chose to stay.
Well, the heartless jerk in me says you can look for another job. You didn't have to stay there. Now, that's not giving credence to the way that this company sort of did string these folks along. Okay, saying we're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed. I get that. This town in and of itself is in a really hard spot.
Yeah.
It's one of those towns that has actually a huge immigrant population. There's been, for some reason, a huge number of people from Haiti have migrated to this town. So this place could turn into somewhat of a powder keg. There's definitely some resentment from all these folks coming in. The impact that it's having on unemployment rates, the impact it's having on different businesses in that area, because these immigrants are driving down the labor costs, what folks can actually ask for their wages. So when you couple that social dynamic along with 300 people losing their jobs, this could go real bad,
could get
real
ugly,
quick.
Yeah.
And I think when there's this much emotion attached, reading some responses there, everybody from being just super angry at the way this was done to just incredibly sad and emotional about making sure that the original lunch bell rang for 132 seconds to commemorate every year that the facility was in operation. This can go one of 2 ways. Like I said, it can go bad, and it's definitely teetering on that. The other option, which is very difficult, and I know is me trying to, put that silver lining on everything, but it's to somehow encapsulate that energy. You've got a good facility with a lot of things going for it. You've got a well-trained workforce that wants to work. You've got a community that understands what it takes to produce in a blue-collar, high technology type manufacturing environment. So there are some things going for it. And ideally that can be capitalized on, marketed, pushed out there to attract some other businesses to come to the area, because there is also a lot going for it.
Yeah.
So it's really going to depend on this community, see which way they go. Hopefully they can come together and really push forward and attract a new business to lift things up, because there is a potential for it to go south.
Well, and I agree with you that, yeah, you can always look for another job. But if it's understood that, all right, you know what, I'm going to be here till the last day and then get my severance. So that way, at least regardless, based on time, likely it's like normally a week per year that you've worked at the facility or something like that. How severance typically works. If you make that deal, like, fine, I will stay until you close the doors as long as the severance comes. Like, there has to be something where if you do it to them 4 times, it's, I don't know. It's just,
I hope the severance was that good. I would be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was that good, I would see it going more a standard regardless, of range of time. So if the severance was worth that much, that's what was sort of the carrot out there for all these folks to hang on that long. Hopefully it was worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have hung around. I don't think if I bought the plane tickets, I'm gone.
But if you don't have the money to transition to a new community, or a new job, I mean, that's what severance is for, is to help you, like, you don't get a paycheck for a couple of weeks at your new position, or, you need money to move and put a deposit down or whatever. A lot of people do not have that. They just do not have it. Yeah. So they don't have an option to just be,
just uproot.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunate.
No, it's, I guess, hopefully, if this is the final time, the employees that stayed do get taken care of and there are no more broken promises. All right, our most popular story this week is about a Jeff Bezos-backed startup building a $25,000 electric truck. A stealthy EV startup is chasing the elusive $25,000 electric truck dream. According to TechCrunch, since 2022, Slate Auto has been quietly assembling a team of auto experts from Ford, GM, Stellantis, and Harley-Davidson. Drawing inspiration from the Model T Ford and the VW Beetle, the company is making a $25,000 two-seat EV pickup. Right now, the market consists of the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Tesla Cybertruck, Chevy Silverado EV, and the Rivian R1T, with costs ranging between $50,000 and $90,000. Slate's truck could enter production as soon as next year, but it sounds like it will be much more modular, kind of a base model, upselling upgrades and customizations. In a trademark application, the company actually had a long list of goods and services that could apply, including underseat subwoofers, cup holder accent lights, frunk floor organizers, roof racks, and installation of decorative wraps. Slate's ideas have drawn several backers, including the aforementioned Jeff Bezos and Dodgers owner Mark Walter. In 2020, Tesla CEO Elon Musk said an EV at that price point could be compelling, but late last year changed his tune, telling investors that building an electric vehicle and selling it for $25,000 would be, if we all recall, silly and pointless. Anna, maybe it's silly, maybe it is pointless, but if Slate can do it, the low-cost electric truck market is their oyster.
If they can do it.
If they can do it.
Everybody wants to do it.
And they want that custom wrap, too. Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
So, my first thought when I saw this and it said Bezos-Backed and I saw that he was an investor in this project, I was like, cool. Just because it seems like the billionaires like to all dump their money into the same industries so they can see who wins at life.
See who's the best.
Yeah, see who's the best.
But I mean, imagine the impact of the 2 richest men focused on like a low-cost EV rather than like space tourism.
I mean, it's better. I do think also outside of just my general distaste for that drama, I do think there are some gains to be made here, no matter who is funding the project. The modular concept is meant to cut costs, of course. To disrupt the industry. We have seen that be attempted many times. Mm-hmm. I know they want to lower the price point, and that's great. But I have also heard this story before, and it's just sort of a wait and see for me anytime anyone says that they can build a better mousetrap when it comes to automotive. Mm-hmm. I do think now is a great time, though, to try. because we've seen advancements in so many different areas, especially with electrics. There's been a lot of scale that's taken place, a lot of advancements in the battery supply chain. So, that's been great. You got a lot of robotics in automotive now. And then also we've seen AI kind of reach a maturity level where it could make some functional impacts on cost for a company like this. All that said, I will believe it when I see it. A $25K vehicle is pretty bonkers before you talk about tariffs and you talk about inflation. And I just, Elon Musk has tried to do it. But as you race to market to get there in time to still be at this price point, I think what we're going to see is it's just going to inch up and it's going to inch up and inch up incrementally until you are just another EV in a very crowded market. And I get that the truck, a lower cost truck is a bit unique. We're not really seeing that anywhere. But again, you have to be able to do it. And I just don't know that they will. I will be watching this company closely to see what happens. But I have concerns about this price point actually being a reality in the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a startup, right? What does every startup need? It needs press. It needs excitement. It needs money.
Needs capital. Yeah.
If you get out there and you say Slate Auto is going to make a $25,000 electric truck, as long as you give us $10 billion to help us get us through the finish line.
Right. And we're going to have like a 4% margin. And I just, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, Jeff, Bezos has the money to burn. So, I mean, the coffers are healthy. I guess if you're spending money, I do think that if this was attainable, that there is a enormous market for this truck.
I would agree. I think so. The way I read this is 25 grand gets you a shell.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets you 4 tires, an engine, a steering wheel, probably something to sit in, and a door to open as well.
Maybe
a comfortable milk crate.
Yeah. I think,
1 to 2 doors. We'll see.
Yeah. I think everything else is an add-on cost here. So there's a little bit of, marketing speak definitely involved here with that 25 grand entry level price.
Wait, you want it painted? Hold on.
Yeah. You want a gas tank? What?
No.
Well, it's a,
you don't want a gas tank, but your tires are extra.
Right. So all of those things, that's what I took it. And I think it is definitely, it's interesting for Bezos, and obviously it draws more headlines with him being involved, but it's also, I mean, a little bit of a competitive conflict you would think with his, association with Rivian as well. I understand that's Amazon making that investment or being involved there, but it's also him. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So interesting that he's kind of leveraging both ends of this spectrum in terms of EV trucks. At least this one, from the very little bit we can see, it does look like a truck.
Did you see the teaser?
Yeah.
The Newsweek teaser?
Yeah.
Because I thought they were joking about the wraps as an option, but then they did the teaser video at Newsweek and wrapped it with the Newsweek N, and I'm like, well, that's something.
Yeah, because at least it doesn't, because we see a couple more of these cyber trucks out on the road, which I do not get. I'm sorry, cannot figure that one out.
Yeah.
So at least this one does look like a truck. On the positive side, what I would say is for fleets, I could see this being very attractive. Because basically with a fleet type truck, you just need it to function. You need to get from point A to point B, and you can haul some stuff and maybe go through some different terrain. So there is an option there, but there's also a lot of other options out there already from very well-established companies. So, yeah, we'll see how far this one goes.
Right. Cybertruck looks like ants tipped over a fridge. We're caught running down the road with it.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
According to Newsweek, quote, Slate aims to beat Tesla to the punch with an inexpensive, compact electric vehicle for the everyman. I don't think you can beat him to the punch if Tesla's already bowed out. Just like, that's silly and pointless.
What does that even mean?
Well,
the everyman?
Oh, for the everyman? Yeah.
What does that mean?
I know.
Every man can buy that show. $25,000. But I do I would, when I was looking for cars, remember when I bought that, was it that old Chevy S10? The tiny little truck that had a different colored door and, wasn't so straight anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in that market,
Maybe you would buy this?
I mean, maybe this would be the next step.
Well, it'd definitely be an upgrade. But
yeah.
Yes, it'd be an upgrade.
I just don't get why I don't know, to me it feels a little bit like hubris to say Tesla couldn't do it despite their scale, factory presence, like supply chain, everything already figured out. But we will.
Yeah.
Like it just it's just such a tough hill to climb.
Well, that was the pitch to Bezos. Musk couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But you
Could
can,
you?
Jeff.
Well, I mean, remember when we're like the weird commercial space race between Blue Origin and SpaceX? And it's just like, oh, all right, I see what you guys are doing there, all racing for the commercial satellite market. But at least this one, if they went to Bezos and they're like, hey, okay, Musk couldn't do it. I bet you could. And he's just like, I'm in. How much? Like, here's my account. Take whatever you need because I really wouldn't miss anything.
Yeah. I'll shave a little bit of budget from my giant desert clock to fund this.
All right. Before we jump into, in case you missed it, the story is maybe not as popular on our websites, Industrial Equipment News and Manufacturing.net. We have another word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by LoadSmart. When dock scheduling gets jumbled, the costs add up quickly. Overbooked appointments lead to trucks on standby, which means detention fees, overtime hours, lost customers. When carriers can easily schedule and edit appointment times, the dock operates without friction. LoadSmart recently helped logistics company 3PL save $144,000 in detention fees and 12,000 labor hours just in the first year after redefining dock schedules across 4 warehouse locations. Download the case study now. There is a link to download it in the body copy. That's the words below the video and the live chat. All right, in case you missed it, story's not as popular on our websites, but could still make a big impact on the industry going forward. Anna, what do you have for us for in case you missed it this week?
Well, I picked a kind of a throwaway story. It's not going to make any kind of impact on the industry going forward, but I just found it to be interesting.
Oh, right.
Because
Okay.
it's timely, and it's about the factory where Peeps are made, and it has a lot of interesting facts about marshmallow Peeps that I thought our audience might enjoy, seeing as it is Easter week.
Fun Peep facts.
Fun Peep facts. And before I proceed, I just want to mention that I am a Peeps hater, and I don't know where you guys are at on that.
I'm not. I like the one Peep a year to cook in the microwave to a comically large size before it bursts into flames.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, other than that, I was just...
you buy them just to do that?
I was going to say, it seems like a lot of wasted energy there.
Well, I mean, no.
So much cleanup.
You should do it. It's really great. Okay. And then you do the Peep battle, right? Where you put a paper clip. Don't do that. Where you put a toothpick in each side, and then they battle, and then they get bigger, and then whoever pops the first one wins.
There's a 0% chance I'm doing this or showing my kids this.
Oh, well, I mean, STEM. I think that falls under the STEM umbrella. Also, we found this amazing hot dog earlier. It is a hot dog where the bun is Peeps.
Ew.
That's gross.
I mean, I wouldn't try that. I was actually just, as I was consulting with the very real Easter Bunny this week.
Yeah.
During our consult, we were determining whether or not Peeps would be included in the Easter Bunny's basket this year. And I was just like, that was the one that didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'd rather do one more chocolate bunny. So I'm just not a Peep fan. Jeff?
Marshmallows in general, not a fan.
Yeah.
Just like Rice Krispie treats and s'mores. Other than that, no marshmallows.
100% with you there.
Yep.
I mean, even if they've been through a quote unquote sugar shower.
Sugar shower. So that's the thing. So the article goes on to describe the 5.5 million Peeps that are made each day.
Oh my goodness.
Which adds up to 2 billion a year, which they say is roughly 6 Peeps for every man, woman, and child across the U.S. 6.
No.
So if we're all bowing out,
yeah,
somebody is overdoing it. 17.
Yeah, because I got my one. But I mean, I guess that means I buy a 4-pack. So okay.
So what was interesting is that this company's called Just Born. The Peeps have been around for a really long time now. There's all kinds of crazy flavors to accommodate our wild tastes in 2025. But they talked about the process, and they said before the early 1950s, making Peeps took 27 hours because they did it by hand.
What?
Yeah.
Per Peep?
No.
Okay.
I think like a batch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Still.
Per Peep.
27 hours of Peeps. They were $1,000 each.
Yeah. The so-called father of Peeps, Bob Bourne from Just Born Company, they say he was the one who came up with a way to speed up the process. They designed their own machine to make them in less than 6 minutes, which is kind of cool looking back that was how that happened in the 1950s. So they say that the same process is used today, same as 1950s process used today. And each batch includes, as you said, a sugar shower that uses 400 pounds of sugar for the whole batch, David, not per peep.
Missed opportunity.
So anyway, many of you will be listening to this podcast after Easter. So the excitement will have worn off and you may find yourself with an excess of these, maybe some regret to accompany that as
regret.
To why you have so many. But I did find out that you can make Rice Krispie treats using Peeps. I never thought that that it would
cool
be
idea.
I didn't think it would be a good idea to heat them up, but apparently you can if you do it slowly on the stove, and you rough chop them first, and then they look like they might be good. They're like very colorful.
Oh yeah,
so
I can see
would
that.
be great.
Yeah.
They said sprinkles optional, but to me, not optional.
Yeah.
I think you would have to put those on.
Yeah, what do you like? Shave them off the Peep? Like,
I don't know.
plus, I mean, just like the
cut the heads off and put them on top.
right. I mean, when you make Rice Krispies, that's the cool part is watching all the marshmallows slowly melt or whatever. So I could, if those were Peeps, that'd be great.
All right. Well, I gave you a project for the weekend.
Oh, thanks. Now
you
I've
go.
got to.
Sorry.
I'm Team Peep now, I guess. Jeff, would you consume a Dr. Pepper flavored Peep?
Oof.
I will try almost anything once.
Yeah. Okay.
So
All
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I was just, I was like, it's weird how many weird Peep flavors they have out there. And that one, I was just like, oh, I don't know. Your thoughts on Peep production?
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Never would have thought it would be that many. I don't know.
No.
Yeah. That's incredible.
They're so polarizing. Like, I just can't understand how 6 Peeps per every man, woman, and child actually flies. So many people hate them. Right? I mean,
right.
Is it really like hate or just no thanks?
I don't know. I'm pretty active in my
Yeah.
distaste for those.
I feel like we have this conversation in the office every year where it's just like, all right, everybody stand up. Where are you at on Peeps?
Yeah.
And then it really gets heated. Has Peeps, like how all of these brands that are strongly tied to a specific holiday try to branch out? Like, has Peeps ever tried to branch out outside of, like, are there Peep Santas?
I think there's like snow Peeps
Okay.
for the holidays. I'll do some quick research while we.
Yeah, I'm out of the Peep scene.
Yeah. That's not a bad thing. Like, that's okay. That's okay. Of all the scenes to be gone, that's a good one. All right.
Oh yeah, there's pumpkins, ghosts, like
Okay.
monsters, like a
Frankenstein.
a green Frankenstein. There's a skull.
Oh, all
They
right.
they figured this out.
Okay. Very good. Mine, in case you missed it this week, was a new piece by our regular columnist, Mike Collins, What Manufacturers Must Do to Survive the New Economy. Tariffs could pressure U.S. manufacturers to reshore production and jobs, which has the ability to create new opportunities to sell into hundreds of new market niches and thousands of new applications. So, Mike Collins, author of the Growth Planning Handbook for Small and Mid-Sized Manufacturers and Saving American Manufacturing, likes to say that there are always opportunities in chaos. For example, every time a large consumer product manufacturer changes the packaging of their products, it can cause a chain reaction of opportunities down through the entire OEM supply chain. But how do you find these new markets and customers, and where do you begin? I picked this story this week because in his latest column, Mike Collins gives you 6 questions that every manufacturer should answer in order to find new markets. And I was just going to do a quick rundown. I highly encourage you to check out the column because I found it to be very impactful. And really, if we look at this shifting landscape, could be a good reason or a good way to find some new opportunities. Number 1, can you identify the best customers to sell now and in the future? Number 2, do you know which market niches, customer groups to focus on now and in the future? Number 3, do you know what kinds of products and services the best customers want? Number 4, can you compare your products model by model to the competitors' products in terms of price, delivery, and key features? Number 5, do you know the specific reasons you lost orders to competitors for every known lost order in the last year? And number 6, Do you know if you are making adequate margins on each product line, model, or job? Now, not only does he give you those 6 questions, but with each of them, he tells you basically how to find the answer to it. Jeff, I don't know if you had a chance to check out this column from Mike, but I thought, kind of a little bit away from market analysis and tariff analysis that we've seen a lot. This was, hey, this might be what the new landscape looks like. Here's a way of potentially navigating it.
Yeah, always helpful. Mike's great. A lot of insight, a lot of thought goes into all of his columns. The one thing with some of his perspectives and some of his these questions here, there is the potential for a manufacturer to, or for anybody, just human nature, to make more excuses than find reasons. Okay, so for like one of these, do you know the specific reasons you lost orders to competitors? People like to say things like, well, it was all price. Yeah. Or, well, it was unfair because they're taking lower priced imports, which, we're trying to figure out ways to solve that. So I think the real key with a lot of those initial questions is be honest with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Too. Don't look at a critical issue or a pain point and just put it all on that. The more honest you can be with yourself, the more effective all of these questions are going to be. The biggest one, I think the one that is going to be, that would have the most weight in my opinion, was the last one. Are you making adequate margins? Mm-hmm. It is shocking how many companies really don't know where they're losing money on some of these products, whether it be in the production process, the material sourcing, packaging, distribution, whatever the case is. That's the biggest one. That one forces you to be very honest with your operations and your pricing and sourcing and all of that, and really coming to a lot of positive solutions as opposed to finding ways to sort of pass the buck and make it not about you.
No, I think that's one thing he tries to be very clear on, is he's just like, if you don't have the right answers and if you're not honest with yourself, it's not going to work. Anna, did you have a chance to check out this column, and did you have any takeaways?
Yeah, I did. And I agree with Jeff that is a huge area of improvement for a lot of companies, is understanding, if you have, some companies have multiple customers that they actually lose money on and they have no idea. Mm-hmm. The only thing I would add to this that I think would be helpful is companies that are trying to find ways to apply AI within their businesses, looking at these questions. And, if you're doing like, an SIC code comparison or something like that, you're trying to do a competitive comparison and product type. And that's like the perfect area for that. You can figure out ways to make that process go more quickly. And so if you're really trying to do like a detailed apples to apples, I would say see if you can figure out how to incorporate AI into that. Mm-hmm. Make it go faster.
Make it go so much faster. Jeff, you're in case you missed it this week.
Well, Anna provided an excellent segue into my story, in case you missed it. I picked out a story that said Microsoft says it's slowing or pausing some of its AI data center projects, including a $1 billion plan in Ohio. So again, Microsoft is slowing down. It's including the $1 billion data center that they had planned for Ohio. The article says it's the latest sign that demand for artificial intelligence technology that drove a lot of these massive infrastructure expansions, they might not be needed as quickly as we thought. People are slowing down a little bit. Now, the headline, whenever you talk about a decrease in spending or we're stopping plans, that can be seen as a negative. In looking through this article, I thought it was a lot of very positive stuff that's going on here. I think this is good. Mm-hmm. I think it is good that we are slowing down, not stopping.
Yeah.
They're not saying we're never going to do this. This also affects a project here in Wisconsin as well.
Yeah.
In that Foxconn campus, unfortunately.
That was the biggest takeaway for me. Just like Mount Pleasant can't catch
a break. No.
But overall for the industry, yeah, I do think this is actually a positive thing, because we're talking about AI becoming a mature enough technology where people are not just blindly rushing in. It kind of feeds off of the article that we also talked about last week when we talked about AI. And it seems like everything right now in manufacturing is either tariffs or artificial intelligence. So I just thought this was refreshing, because it's a big company basically saying, look, we're going to build these data centers. We know we also needed to build a lot of energy infrastructure to support these data centers that are going to be, powering artificial intelligence type platforms. We're not stopping. We're just pausing. We're going to slow down and let the market catch up. And I think what the market is doing is a lot of stuff we talked about last week. They're saying, what is the best use for this? I'm not just going to plug a bunch of stuff in and invest in a lot of these different, whether it's software or applications or whatever the case is, but actually, where do I want to put this? Let me be a little bit more surgical or a little more precise in how I apply this technology. And as a result, a lot of these things are slowing down, not stopping. I thought this was positive. It shows AI becoming more mature in the marketplace.
No, I I had the same takeaway, but I did think, okay, following the entire Foxconn debacle, the one thing was that everyone was just like, well, Foxconn had this legacy from overseas as to being kind of a bad actor, at least within the community. And then it was just like, all right, we washed our hands of Foxconn and we got a real winner, one with like a lot of integrity, and it's a slam dunk. It's Microsoft. And then they're like, yeah, but we're just going to put a pin in it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going away. We're just pausing. And it was just like, oh, didn't see that coming.
But don't you see it as integrity to
yes,
pause now instead of opening when it doesn't
no,
make sense? Yeah.
I completely that's was going to be my next point is just
not
like,
integrity.
right.
That's not the right word, but you know what I mean?
Like,
it shows a foresight that I appreciate for those people that could be working there.
Yes. More of a, let's just say, business integrity, more professionalism.
Pragmatic.
Yeah. They're not just staffing people to ride around in scooters so that way they can still get incentives.
Right.
Anna, your thoughts on the story?
Yeah, I think I just gave them. Like
Okay.
that's
it. Did you have any more thoughts? If not, that's
welcome to the
okay.
podcast, David.
Woo, all right.
Thanks for joining us.
No, I think that you guys, I agree with you. There's a lot to it that makes sense. I can't.
I know that's. I'm sorry. That one struck me. I'm pretty sure you got them all. No, we've covered the scenario many times on the podcast where we talk about a company that is implementing layoffs or shutting down completely, and then in the small print of the story is like they had undergone a $15 million renovation like 2 years earlier. And you're like, why did you do that? When it just felt, sometimes it feels very short-sighted where they end up and you're like, how could you have not seen any of this like 2 years ago when you were dumping money like crazy or hiring 500 extra people and then suddenly 6 months later we're out of business? Like, yeah.
To me, this is yes, I agree with you both. I think it's positive that they are taking a methodical approach, looking at market conditions, looking at demand, and not full speed ahead just because.
Yeah, it's like the TI story last week where they did just get more than $1 billion in funding, but they're still doing things smart.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's jump into our final thoughts before we get out of here this week. Anna, what's your final thought?
So I went to a trade show this week for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
Normally I'm at a trade show a few times a year, but I don't think I'm not sure I even went to one last year, maybe one.
Okay.
But enough time has passed apparently that I was not, people were like coming at me with the tchotchkes and I totally forgot how to just
respectfully decline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, okay. So I walked away with a T-shirt, a cheese, a stress.
Was there a rooster on it?
Stress ball? No, there was not. But It did say it was a cheese industry expo. So equipment companies, ingredient companies, right? So the shirt said, what did it say?
It wasn't. That's what cheese said.
Oh, it was.
It was.
Yeah.
It was okay.
That's what cheese said, and
Yeah.
it had like this cheese that was like, yeah, what of it?
Anthropomorphic cheese.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
So I gave it to David to take home to his wife, Carrie, who is a big fan of puns, and I knew she would appreciate it more than anyone on earth.
She's probably wearing it right now. Yeah, that is official work from home shirt.
So I hope that she benefited from my lack of ability to shut down I did get a pizza cutter, which was exciting.
Oh, yeah.
It said that it was the world's greatest pizza cutter.
Is it shaped like cheese?
No, it's shaped like a pizza cutter, and it looks like every pizza cutter I've ever seen. So I don't know.
Well, so yesterday for his birthday, my son received a pizza cutter. It was like a bicycle. The wheels were pizza cutters. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe the handle was like a slice of cheese or something, not like a.
Nope, just your run of the mill.
Just a pizza cutter to
wheel.
cut through the cheese. Good. Woo! We are firing through the finish line today.
And that's all I have to say.
Very good. Very good. For my final thought this week, I have a tantalizing story about a tree up at my cottage. But since we're running a little long, I'm going to put a pin on that and do that as my final thought next week. It's an incredible story. I'm so excited to tell you guys. And the one thing that I like is anytime I tell somebody about it, they're like, I've never heard of that before. But because we had the contest from last week, I wanted to use my final thought to talk about that, just because it's going to be a minute. So just to recap, we're giving away a prime 9.5-foot telescopic extension ladder from V-Steps. This has a slow close system, so controlled closing to avoid pinching fingers, angled rubber feet, maximum surface contact to avoid slipping. It was made in Sweden. It has a smart and safe unlocking system, so 2 push buttons for closing the ladder, which I found incredibly useful. It also has auto step, which is automatic unlocking when closing the ladder. So we asked for your best ladder story, and these are the top 3 that will all receive something. Number 1's going to get a ladder, going to get the ladder that I just talked about, and the other 2 are going to get assorted V-Step swag. So number 3, we picked William B. He emailed and said, I bought a house in June and was painting. My ladder wasn't tall enough, so I improvised. And he sent us a photo of a ladder set up with an aluminum work platform on the 4th step of the ladder, and on the other side was on a staircase, and he was standing on it, painting the ceiling. There's the photo of him. That honestly looks safer than anything else we were sent. So that was one where I was just like, been there. But yeah, William, you're crushing it. Hopefully we can at least send you some new swag to paint in, or wear proudly about town. Number 2 was Marina B. Marina said, I bought a new home after I fell in love with the 20-foot ceilings and skylight. But then we had a problem cleaning the dirty fan. It was such a distraction to me because I saw it in front of the skylights. The unit was previously rented by a, quote, podcast bro / comedian. And there's so many. Like, is that us, Jeff? That's not us. Anna? No,
we could not be described as bros, thankfully.
True. Thank God.
Yeah.
This unit, previously rented by the podcast bro / comedian who lacked basic cleaning abilities. The smell of week-old steak hung in the air, and the counters were covered in grease. The white fan was black and fuzzy, so to get to this white fan, they had to climb onto a ledge above the window, place the ladder on the ledge, lean it onto a beam, climb the ladder to clean the fan.
No.
We have photos of that one as well. Yikes. Yeah.
No, thank you.
He is up there. But I mean, you know what? The fan is clean. I'm assuming the countertop is degreased. And hopefully, we could reach out to the podcast bro / comedian and maybe share some likes. You know,
it does look nice in there. It's a nice skylight.
Beautiful tall ceilings and skylight. We get it. Number 1 came from Jeff D. Jeff says, when I was 16, which is around the year 2000, I was working for my brother who was a contractor. I was laying down a paper membrane on a 30-foot wall on a 7% grade uneven hill and blocking up each leg to level it out, all while carrying 30-pound bags and a hammer throw stapler in his hand. He got the job done, and to this day, he still thinks of how stupid he was for doing the job without help, thinking of all the things that could have happened now that he is a very youthful 41 years old with many, many years in front of him. He says he didn't come out unscathed as his throw stapler was left hanging up about halfway through the job, and sure enough, it came falling down when he moved the ladder, about a 20-foot drop right onto his head. And now he has a gray spot to remind him of where it hit. Well, you know what? Jeffrey Dale, you not only have a gray spot to remind you of that fall, but you got a new ladder as well.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you to everybody who reached out. It was really difficult to pick a top 3, but I really like it when we do these types of contests and we get to interact a little bit more with our viewers and listeners. Jeff. Jeff or Dale, Jeff, Marina, and William, I'll reach out via email. But if you hear this first, send me your address so we can get those in the mail. What's your final thought this week?
So, David, first and foremost, obviously this weekend, it's Easter. That's number one.
Yeah.
But you know what the second most important thing happening this weekend is?
E-waste disposal?
WrestleMania 41.
Ooh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
That was
2 nights,
What I was thinking.
Saturday and Sunday.
2 nights now.
Yes.
Okay.
Packed card. The big one is John Cena going to win his 17th World Championship.
Yeah. Okay.
He said he's going to take it and go home. He's going to ruin
he's
wrestling
walking
for everybody because he's a bad guy now.
Yeah, he's a heel now. I did
Yes.
see that.
He's still doing that? I
Yeah.
just thought he was an actor now. No?
Well, this was his like.
He's doing a farewell year.
Yeah.
This is
Oh,
He,
okay.
like, it kind of made headlines because this was like his triumphant return / final farewell or whatever. And then he turned heel. Jesus, I fall over. And it's like it's been compared to the like second biggest heel turn in history, I guess.
It's been very entertaining.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm in.
I don't even know what
Obviously,
that means.
I'm watching.
I mean, so that those are the plan. When does it start? Is this like a full day thing now?
I think it starts. Usually, I wait until it's over because I can fast forward a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I think it starts like late afternoon on Saturday and then again Sunday.
Man, that is just it has grown so much since like WrestleMania.
It's ridiculous.
3 when I saw that.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy.
Ridiculously awesome.
Yeah. I'm not going to have such a fun, entertaining weekend.
Want to come over? Watch WrestleMania?
I probably will. Yeah. All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Anna, Jeff, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first and subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can join us live every Thursday. All right. For Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manty. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.